third graders, welcome back. This is Dr. Davis here, ready to begin another lesson on the human body, system, and senses. So let's review. In our last lesson, we learned a sensory organ is an organ that allows you to use one of your five senses. Now, let's think about what the five senses are. We've got sight, hearing, smelling, tasting, and touching. And we learned specifically about the eyes because the eyes are with our sense of sight. Yes, that's what we have to use. We learned that eyes are designed to focus light. We also learned that our eyes, the eyeball, if we took the eyeball out, which we're not going to do, but it's soft and hollow and it contains a liquid and jelly-like inside. We also learned that every part of the eye has a role in order for you to see. So even though you just see this, what you can't really tell it's round, but remember we talked about it is really an eyeball. If we took it out, all the parts of the eye has a role. Now, let's take a look at the eye. All of the hairs on your face, around your eyes, they actually serve a purpose. We have eyebrows that help to keep some of the sweat and dust particles out of your eye. And also your eyelashes serve that purpose. We also have the eyelid. When you close your eye, it helps to cover and keeps things from getting into your eye. And then we have the eye socket. Now, I want you to take your hand and feel right below your eyebrow. There's a bone there. And I want you to feel all around. You see that that's like a circle. It's a socket. So your eye actually, they don't sit out. Your eyes sit back in that eye socket, and that helps to keep your eye protected. Now, those are the external, the outside things of your eye. Here are some other things that we can see externally. We have the iris, and then the pupil, that's that dark part. And remember, the iris is the part that gives eye color. And we all have different color eyes. You have blue eyes and brown eyes, and some people have green eyes or hazel eyes. Sometimes they're even gray, all kinds of colors for eyes, and that's what makes us all special. Then we have the cornea and the sclera, that white part of the eye. All of this helps you to be able to see not only this part that we can see, but remember, if we were to take the eye out, there are parts of the eye that are back here in our heads that you can't see. So this eye is as if I am holding an eyeball in my hand and it's facing that way. I know that sounds gross, but it's like I'm holding an eye. So back here, all of the things you see back here, that's what's back in your head, okay? Now we've already talked about the iris and the pupil. Now, you've got the lens. The lens, you can't actually see that part. It's back behind the iris and the pupil, okay, and the sclera. And then you've got all of these nerves. And then back here at the back of the eye is the retina, and that's very important as well with you being able to see. Then you have this part called the optic nerve. And the optic nerve is important because it's what sends the messages to the brain so you can actually see the images. So that brings me to the point of how do we actually see? Now, friends, I know that this was a lot, but let's take it slow and simple. So actually, when eyes are seeing, there is a sequence or order by which each part of the eye receives and processes the light that is coming into the eye. So I have tried to make it very simple for you to understand. So first, the light passes through the cornea. That's part of the outside of the eye. Then the pupil, remember the dark circle, we all have a dark circle in the middle of our eye. The light passes through there. Then the lens, you can't see the lens of the eye. Then it goes all the way to the back of the eye to the retina. All right? Then the retina sends a message to the optic nerve, that nerve up here, and then that nerve sends a message to the brain. And your brain tells you what you're seeing. That's how we're able to see. And get this all happens all the time and in split seconds. Because if it took several minutes, by the time you got the message, then you would be looking at something else. So it is always happening and happening very quickly. All right, we also talked about these terms, and some of you may have heard this if you've gone to the eye doctor before. Nearsighted and farsighted. When a person is nearsighted, that means nearby objects are seen clearly, but distant objects are out of focus. So look at this picture here. You see how we can see these people very clearly. But if we look back here, this is not very clear, okay? However, with farsighted people, distant objects are seen clearly, but nearby objects are out of focus. So I actually can see these things back here a little bit more clearly, where the people that are close up are not very clear. And we've learned also that we have glasses and contact lenses. Those things help us when we are nearsighted or are farsighted. Whew. You've learned a lot. Now, can you believe it? We are ready for lesson 8. And today, can you take a guess on what we're going to be focusing on? There may be a picture here to help you. I want you to listen carefully to find out details about how the ear works and how hearing helps us understand the world around us. So we have talked about the sense of sight. Now we're going to talk about the sense of hearing. So we've got our friend Ricardo here, so let's get started. Hear ye, hear ye. Today we're going to poke around in your skull once more to learn about another one of your sensory organs. I'll give you a hint with another one of my special riddles. We are located near your eyes. There are 2 of us. My twin hangs out on the opposite side of your head. We both hate the sound of sirens. What are we? Yes, your ears. Your ears work together with your brain to help you hear. Think about all the different sounds you hear throughout your day. You hear alarm clocks, water running, doors opening, horns honking, bells ringing, people talking, and so much more. Your ears are very important in the classroom where you need to listen in order to learn. Your ears will help you thicken your cerebral cortex. Remember, we learned about in the brain that the cerebral cortex, as you learn, it actually gets thicker. So we know that we have much thicker cerebral cortexes because you have learned a lot. You are going to hear about all the parts of the ear that work together as an, remember, interconnected system. Interconnected. Your ear is divided into 3 sections: the outer ear, the middle ear, and the inner ear. Outer, middle, and inner. Just like your eyes, only part of your ears is visible. The other parts are hidden inside the protective bones of your skull. Mammals are the only animals with outer ears. The outer ear consists of flaps on either side of your head, the ear canal and the eardrum. Your outer ear flaps are called pinna. They are made of skin and tough elastic tissue called cartilage. We've said that word a lot for the past several weeks. Who remembers which other parts of the body contains flexible cartilage? Yes, we talked about the ear. What else? Yes, your nose has some cartilage as well. And yes, cartilage is found with your bones. Good job. The bottom part of each ear flap or pinna is called an earlobe. It is much softer than the top part because it does not contain any cartilage. Some earlobes are attached to the side of the head, whereas others dangle loose. Do you know which sort you have? I have the kind that dangle loose. Shaped something like a cup, your outer ear is a sound catcher. It collects sound waves from the air around you and funnels them through your ear canal to your eardrum. Your ear canal is like a tunnel, about half as long as one of your pinkies. So take your pinky and go about halfway. That's about how long your ear canal is. The inside of the ear canal is lined with tiny hairs, and earwax is constantly being produced by glands beneath the soft skin. Can anyone guess what earwax does? And some of you out there may be going, ew, earwax. But we all have it and we all need it, and it serves a purpose. Earwax prevents infections by keeping dirt and other particles from building up in the ear canal. At the end of the ear canal, sound bounces off a thin, flexible flap of skin that stretches across the end of this tunnel. This membrane or thin skin flap is called an eardrum because sound vibrates off it in the same way that sound vibrates off the top of a drum when it's pounded with a drumstick. Your eardrum separates your outer ear from your middle ear. So this is your outer ear. This is the part that we see. And remember, we can't see it all. Then we get into the middle part here. This is the middle ear. Your middle ear is a tiny air-filled space just behind your eardrum. As the eardrum vibrates or shakes, 3 itty-bitty bones inside the middle ear begin to move too. Let's see here. So we've gone through the outer ear to the middle ear, right here. Let's learn about those 3 itty-bitty bones. These 3 bones are named for their shapes: the hammer, the anvil, and the stirrup. They are the smallest bones in your body. The stirrup is the smallest of the 3, no bigger than a grain of rice. Can you think about how tiny one little piece of rice is? That's how small that bone is in your ear. These 3 tiny bones form a chain, held in place by muscles that leads from the middle ear to the inner ear. Okay, it's time for an experiment. Now just stay with me. Close your mouth and form a puddle of spit inside your mouth. I know it sounds gross, but just come on, just do it with me. Now, as you swallow your spit, listen closely. Did you hear anything? You probably heard a little click. Yes? That's what I hear when I do that. The middle ear is linked to the back of your throat by a narrow tube. Whenever you swallow, chew, or yawn, the tube opens to let air travel in and out of your middle ear. That keeps the air pressure constant on either side of your eardrum, preventing it from bursting. Have your ears ever felt clogged in an airplane or while riding in a car over a mountain? Mine have. Suddenly you hear a loud pop and then they're fine again. The tube connecting your throat to your middle ear opened up. Thank goodness. Your inner ear is located inside your skull. It is the most complicated and delicate part of the ear, consisting of a maze of tubes inside a liquid-filled bony hollow space. At the end of the maze is a snail-shaped, coiled, bony tube filled with fluid. This part of your ear, lined with tiny hairs, plays a very important part in hearing. It is called the cochlea, which means snail in Latin. Some people who cannot hear get cochlear implants, invented devices that function just like the cochlea functions. The second part of the inner ear is the auditory nerve, which can be likened to the optic nerve to the eyeball. So once again, friends, so here remember, this is the outer ear. This section right here is the inner ear. And then it talked about how it's like a maze, but also it looks like what organism? Yes, it looks like a snail. And all of this now connects to the auditory nerve, which sends the messages to the brain. Now let's learn about how all of this works together so we can actually hear. So just exactly how do ears work? Your ears collect sound waves or vibrations. Like, think about a bee and the sound that you hear. That's the sound. That's representing the sound. Sound waves are tiny, invisible movements in air. Sounds are only heard when these waves bump against the outer ear and get funneled into your ear canals. Different sounds have different wave patterns. Loud sounds, such as a jackhammer, have larger waves than softer sounds, such as the purring of a cat. The louder the sound, the larger the vibration inside your ear. For you to hear sounds, vibrations must travel from your outer ear, through your middle ear, to your inner ear, and onto the brain for processing. Let's follow a sound wave through an ear to see how it works. So first, the outer ear or sound catcher collects sound waves and channels them into the ear canal. So you've got sound and it's going into the ear canal. Once the sound waves are channeled into the ear, they hit the eardrum, causing it to vibrate. As the eardrum vibrates, so do the three bones in the middle ear. Next, hinged together by miniature joints, the hammer hits the anvil and the anvil hits the stirrup. All these vibrations in the middle ear cause liquid in the inner ear to vibrate as well. Wrapped inside the cochlea is a long, narrow ribbon with thousands of hearing cells, each loaded with tiny hairs. The vibrations in the middle ear create waves in the fluid of the inner ear, which causes the tiny hairs of the cochlea to ripple as well. Next, the sensory hairs bend and stretch, producing nerve impulses. These signals are carried on nerve fibers or threads along the auditory nerve to the hearing center of the brain. And this is the auditory nerve, and these are the nerve cells. The brain is able to recognize the nerve impulses or signals as sound, even determining the direction from which the sound comes. You know how sometimes you hear something and wherever you hear it, your body automatically turns that way? That's the brain telling you where the sound is coming from. The brain receives lots of different vibrations at the same time and is able to tell the signals apart, passing the information along to you and allowing you to hear. These signals hardly ever get mixed up in your amazing brain. For some people, hearing is difficult or even impossible when one or more parts of this system are not working correctly. When people are not able to hear anything, or perhaps only a few sounds, we say they are deaf. Your inner ear is the seat of your hearing, but it has another important job to perform as well. Your balance is controlled by your inner ear. Can you believe that? Nestled behind your cochlea are three curved tubes called the semicircular canals. So look right here, semicircular canal, right here. These canals are filled with fluid and lined with tiny hairs, just like the cochlea. Whenever you move your head, turning around, lying down, or bending forward, fluid inside the semicircular canals causes the hair to bend. The bending of the canal's tiny hairs sends nerve signals to your brain to let it know where and how you are moving. Your brain then sends messages to your muscles to keep you steady, maintaining your balance. Have you ever whirled around so fast that you became dizzy and lost your balance? I have. And sometimes if I stand up too quickly and my head moves, I can lose my balance that way too. That's because the fluid in the canals kept moving for a few seconds even after you stopped. It's almost time to stop for today, but first, close your eyes, fold your hands in your laps. Now, let's sit very quietly and find out how many different sounds you can hear in your room. Right now, I can hear cars, I can hear air conditioner running, a horn blowing. What can you hear there where you are? All kinds of things. You can open your eyes now. Just for fun, before I go, I'll leave you with another riddle. I have ears, but cannot hear. What am I? Oh my goodness. What has ears, but can't hear? Corn stalk. A corn stalk has ears of corn on it. You get it? And now it's time for a brain break. So I want everyone to stand up, because we're going to get some blood flowing, and that helps our brain to really work, okay? So we're going to do yes, no, okay? If the answer to my question that I'm going to ask you, if it's yes, I want you to punch up in the air and march at the same time, okay? You're punching and marching, okay? And if the answer to my question is no, I want you to do arm circles, okay? So yes is what? Punching up and marching, and no is standing still and arm circles. Okay, so here we go. Do you have a brother? This is yes. And remember, if it's no, circle side to side. I have a brother, so I'm punching up. All right, next one. Do you have a sister? If you have a sister, then you're going to keep on punching up. Yes. If you don't, you're going to be doing arm circles. All right, the next one. Do you like to exercise? Oh, goodness. My answer is actually yes. So I'm still exercising right now. All right, the next question. Do you like to read? Are you still yes? I'm still yes for another question. Okay, next thing. Do you ride a bike? I used to when I was little, but I don't ride a bike anymore. Okay. Do you like rainy days? Oh, I don't like rainy days. Do you like snowy days? Oh, I love snowy days. And then the next one is, do you miss being at school? Oh, I'm gonna punch even harder because I really, really miss being at school. All right, now I want you to stop and then have a seat, and let's get back to work. All right, friends, so we've got comprehension questions that's going to actually review some of the things that we've talked about today and see how much you remember. So the first question is, why do our ears produce wax? Now remember, we thought about, ew, some people say, oh, that's gross, that's nasty. However, but earwax is necessary in your body. But why? Think about that answer. If someone is there with you, you can turn and tell your answer to that person. So, the purpose of earwax, to prevent infections by keeping dirt and other particles from building up in the ear canal. So wax helps to really protect our ears, okay? Of course, the ear inside. Our next question, what are the 3 sections of the human ear? Remember, there are 3 parts. This part you can see, then another part, and then another part. The outer ear, the middle ear, and all the way closer to the brain is the inner ear. Okay, now, this part, we're going to really work together because there were a lot of steps. List the steps or sequence of parts of the ear that sound travels through to allow you to hear. Here we go. First of all, we talked about there are sound waves. Now, we can't see the sound waves, and they're collected in the outer ear, so right here. Now, once the sound passes the outer ear, it is channeled or funneled into the middle ear. And then the sound hits the eardrum, okay? Where does it go after it hits the eardrum? Do you remember those parts? Remember those 3 smallest bones in your body. First, it's the hammer, and the hammer hits the anvil. And then once it hits the anvil hits the stirrup. And then from the stirrup, it goes into the inner ear, and the cochlea ripples. And remember, at that point, there's lots of things happening with the liquid and the tiny hairs, but eventually it sends a message to the auditory nerve, and the auditory nerve sends a message to your what? Your brain. That's the steps to how we hear. It's a lot. Our word for today is the word impulses. In the read aloud you heard, next, the sensory hair cells bend and stretch, producing nerve impulses. Say the word impulses with me. Impulses. Good. Impulses are the electrical signals carried through the nerve cells of the ear to the brain that enable someone to be able to hear sound. For example, the human brain is such a wondrous part of our body that it can interpret nerve impulses from the ear as sound. Now, we've talked about several types of nerve impulses through this domain. In Lesson 5, we discussed that the impulses that travel to and from the brain enable you to be able to use your 5 senses. In Lesson 6, we discussed the impulses that are sent through the nervous system. And also in Lesson 7, we discussed the role of the nerve impulses from the eye going to the brain. So what part of speech is impulses? Yes, it is a noun. Now, there is another meaning of the word impulses. Impulses also means sudden, strong desires to do something. For example, I remember growing up and my grandmother's yard had lots of trees. So this time of year, we were always raking leaves. We didn't have blowers back then. And I would have the sudden impulse whenever I would see the pile of leaves. What do you think I did? Yes, it was like I just had to jump into that pile of leaves. That was a sudden impulse. Also, I remember as a child playing in the snow, especially when we had several inches, like 6 inches, 7 inches, a lot of snow. I would have a sudden impulse to fall back in the snow and make a snow angel. So when is the time you had a sudden impulse to do something? Think about that. Maybe you were at the pool and you had an impulse to jump in. Or maybe you were on the playground and you had an impulse to try something or do something new. We just have to remember that when it's an impulse, that we're being very safe and not doing anything dangerous. Good job today. So friends, that concludes our lesson, and until next time, be safe and keep learning. Goodbye.